Okay, so we've got a question here that talks about a virus, and it's saying that to estimate the number of errors, we can use this formula here, or expression here, for what happens after t hours. Work out and estimate the number of errors after 8 hours. So basically that's saying to use the value of t as 8. So we've literally got to do 10 to the power of 6 times 2 to the power of negative 8. So 10 to the power of 6 times 2 to the power of negative 8. Remember your negative key, really important that you don't use a minus because it's not saying subtract, it's actually a negative number. So negative 8 equals. So 3906.25. Now it's about viruses, so therefore you can't have a part of a virus. So an estimate would be 3,906. The next part of the question said explain whether the number of errors on this computer ever reaches 0. Well, what that's suggesting is think about what happens when you do 2 to the power of a negative a time. And if you think about 2 to the power of negative t, if you were to plot the graph of that as time goes on, then it would be an exponential function. So the negative power suggests that it's going to decrease and decrease and decrease and decrease and decrease, but it will never reach the bottom axis. Doesn't matter how big t is, t could be infinity, and you'd still be doing 2 divided by, because remember what this means, 2 to the power of negative t. It means you're doing 1 over 2 to the power of t. So basically we're saying that 2 to the power of something will always create a value, and 1 divided by that value will always give you something bigger than 0. So the answer to this is no, it would never equal 0. That's one answer. No, never reaches 0, as 2 to the negative t is equivalent to 1 over 2 to the power of t, which will always create a positive, if small, value. Now, that's one possible answer, but you could also argue that because you can't have part of a virus, that when 2 to the power of t gets really big, then you will end up with a real small fraction that when you do 1,000,000, because 10 to the power of 6 is 1,000,000, times a very small fraction, you will get something less than 1. And therefore you could argue that because you can't have part of a part of a virus, or part of an error, sorry, then you could put an answer of yes, it could reach 0, because you round that. So you could have an answer of yes, but then you'd have to justify it by being very clear that because you can't have part of an error, it's either an error or not, then eventually you could get down to 0, but you'd have to explain that carefully.